All right, so there are different ways to pass data from Django to your front end or JavaScript. The one you've seen is kind of like embed data within HTML. So that's kind of like Django. I think it's this one. Oh wait, templates. So that's something like this. Okay. So this is what you've been doing in your exercises. I would say it's kind of traditional monolithic way of doing it. And you don't need these links here. Simplify things. Right? You have your data in your controller or view action, and then you're building HTML around your data. So that's the first one. So there's the newer way is using passing JSON with API application programming interface, I believe, API. So what happens is, so this is what we're doing now, right? You have your browser. It calls out to your server, which is your Django app. And it returns back with HTML. So you put in the URL, and then it comes back with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and then it runs in your browser. It shows up as a web page. The JavaScript that's running in the browser, additionally, can also make requests. It can go to it can actually make requests on your behalf, which is, back in the day, that's how hackers would kind of like have embed code as JavaScript and then send that code to wherever they want or do whatever they want with it, right? But it's more locked down now, and it's better better contained. But it can also make requests, and then your Django app can then return JSON. So it can make it. It's called an AJAX request, asynchronous Java something, right? And then they'll come back as JSON. So let's take a look at it. AJAX. Asynchronous JavaScript and XML, though JSON is much easier to use than XML. Um, so let's put that here. And JSON is just a format. And is very much like YAML, how we can denote things in YAML. So let's put that here. Okay. And let's show you what that is. So JSON viewer is a tool that is useful for me. Okay, so our greetings could be hello world, a list, right, by world. And so this is JSON. So very similar to how you do lists in Python, and then it'll be represented as an array with strings, right? But JSON's flexible. You can also put in like dictionary, and then values, right? So key values, it can also represent that. So it's just a way to represent data. So that's why your app can make these requests and you get JSON back, which is a format that has data. So this is essentially data as JSON. Okay. And then if you want to see it, check it out here. Okay. So then how do you do that, right? So jQuery allows you to make AJAX requests. Right, so you can use jQuery to make the AJAX requests. All right. Then you gotta have Django respond with JSON. Django respond with JSON. So the key part usually is you import the library, and then so this could be our list of greetings, right? So instead of this hard-coded data structure, we can give it a list. And there's different ways. But this is probably the simplest. So let's how do I share? Get the link. Okay. So that's how you would do it on the JSON side. I mean on the Django side. All right. And the newer applications where it's like React, Vue, because it's all JavaScript, you can continually make these requests to get more data to fill out your pages, right? After the JavaScript gets the JSON, then it tries to kind of build these HTML tags around the data, but within JavaScript, right? Obviously, not Python. Okay, so those are two ends of the spectrum. But before this pattern of using AJAX, JSON, APIs was kind of solidified, standardized, and became so common, there was an intermediary time, and this is what I would recommend. If you can get this working, great. But within a week, if you can't, this is a decent way to. So this would be embed JSON within HTML. So the idea behind that would be do something similar to this. Okay. And then maybe you put it as a div. I forgot how I used to do it, but and then you can just make up your own attribute, right? So data, greetings. You set that equal to something like that JSON. I'm not quite sure on the details here, but something like you convert it to dictionary or to JSON. So there should be a helper. Let's see. Django. Convert to JSON in template. So you do something like this. Yeah, JSONify. That's the other one that I've seen. So you might do something like this where you would take your greetings list and then pass it to JSONify. Right, you'll create this kind of an empty div just to hold your data. I think you need this curly braces. So something along that line. And it depends, because you could also do it within depending what kind of data was easier, you might want to do it here before you pass the greetings list. Before you pass the greetings list to your template. So you might have it as a big string already. But that's the intent. Then let's link this here. So one other option that I would advise against is, oh wait, I guess let's finish this here. So in your JavaScript somewhere, you can do your jQuery. Maybe this has an ID, greetings. You would find that div and then get attribute. I don't remember the syntax, but something like get, or maybe it was data, jQuery get data. Here, this one. So you do something like this, where your data, yeah. So you give it the last portion. Okay, just like that. Oops. Oh, maybe sticky notes would have been better for the URLs. Okay, so you find the attribute, the element, and then you call data and give it the key, which is greetings. And then you can do whatever you want with that. Let with that data, right? Okay, so you basically embed it within your HTML, and then you can pluck it back out with jQuery. And that's not the, that's also that also means you could have done the same thing here. You could have found all these lists and kind of built a list of messages similar to what they're doing here. Guess not quite. If they wanted to iterate through and pick out these texts individually, you could, but it's just more difficult, right? Since you have the option, you control both ends, right? The browser and the Django. Then you can kind of like have Django give back exactly what you want. Because sometimes if we don't have control of Django and we only have HTML, we only control the HTML, then, if the data is already processed into a list, then we have to kind of like manually scrape it out, right? Which is doable, but it's kind of a pain. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. To summarize, this is how we're doing it. We're embedding it within HTML. This is kind of better now using API, AJAX, and JSON to pass data around. But it is kind of few steps from what we've been doing in class. So in the middle is this kind of hackier way of doing it, but it will get the job done. I hope that makes sense. If there's questions or comments or clarification, happy to address that. Okay. I think you said this was helpful. Okay. All right, thanks. All right, so those are the options. All right, I'm gonna stop recording if there's nothing else.